had a question at break about like this amygdala, the nuclei, and so forth. And one of the things that they do for this limbic system, with the limbic system, it is considered to be diffuse, meaning going through these different areas. So this is a picture giving us an idea of where this limbic system is located and its relationship to this area that's the prefrontal cortex, and then how we've got these other areas that are going to be associated with different regions of the brain, okay? Because, like I said, for it to have memory, emotion, and so forth, this is using other areas of the brain than just our cerebrum. So this is giving us an idea of where these areas are located. Like they're showing some of the basal nuclei, but even though it's a different view on a different picture, okay? The amygdala, they're trying to show where that's located. The this area that's dealing with like the hippocampus, all this sort of stuff, they're trying to show this limbic system being very diffuse throughout these areas of the brain. And that cingulate gyrus that I was mentioning, a singular meaning one, okay? But now granted, remember, it'll be on both sides, left and right, okay? But this is where they're trying to show that one gyrus, a fold, okay? So these are areas that are going to help with forming the memory, the cognition, the learning, and so forth. So let's talk a little more about this chapter. Then I'm going to let you guys work on Lab 17. So this emotion, like I said, one of the things about it, it's a lot of things involved with emotions. And then that visceral portion, because sometimes, for example, a smell can be so bad, we actually get the gag reflex, okay? That is a visceral response to a stimulus. So it's kind of interesting how that works. So, sensations. What do you think of when you hear that term? Touch, pain, pressure, heat, cold. In our general sense of touch, the general sense of touch, like not the sight, sound, all that sort of stuff. The general sense of touch, the receptors, they're pretty simple. They're not very complex. So our cerebrum is picking up a lot of this information, like pain, pressure, touch, heat, cold, and a region that we're going to find for sensation is going to be termed our primary sensory cortex. So as we're looking at the brain as a whole, they're going to actually have an area of it that's termed just sensory cortex. This would be the area where we would get to have the input, and then we get to become aware of the stimulus. Maybe it is the heat or the cold or something to that effect. It would then have an association area so that we can make sense of that stimulus. Now, that would be stuff that's involved with my general senses, my special senses. Sight, smell, taste, sound, equilibrium. These are all limited to any type of input and so forth being strictly from areas of the head. It's going to be it's going to be information coming in based on nerves that are here. Okay? Special senses are going to have an area of the cortex, the cerebrum. They're going to have an area that will be primary to their sensation. For example, sight. What lobe do you associate with sight? The occipital. So we're going to have an area that is just for that sensation coming in. They will also have what they term an association area. So how do we look at this? Well, once again, picture of the brain, different lobes. They've got some of those gyri, the pre and the post, okay? They're doing everything. They're trying to color code it so that we know where these areas are. Now, look at what they're trying to tell us. All right, frontal, parietal, temporal, occipital. You guys remember those gyri, pre and post? Now look at the terms. Primary somatosensory cortex. This gyri right here, primary somatosensory. What did that terminology tell me? Soma means what?
Body.
Body. Sensory. The sensory information from the body. Okay? So that's telling me that sensory information that has to come in from the body goes to this gyri. And before, well, I guess I should say, well, depending on how you look at it, but see this area that they've got right here? That's the association area for it. So think about types of stimuli that might come in. Pain, pressure, touch, heat, cold, okay? So we have an association area for that to come in, a primary gyri to deal with it, and then once that integration occurs, what do you notice about this gyri? What is its name? Primary motor. What is the motor telling me? The response, the effect. But note, it also has an association area. Now, other areas that they're showing us, like they're showing us the Broca area, prefrontal cortex, and olfactory association area. Olfactory means smell, okay? Over here, they're showing me gustatory, taste, the Wernicke area, my visual association, primary vision, primary auditory, my general senses just came into the cortex. But my special senses had their own area, their own lobes to go to. Do you see the difference there? Okay. Now, how do they associate, how do they usually represent this information? Those general senses, They're known as somatosensory. This means the stuff that's over this entire body. Some of the information comes by cranial nerves, some of that, but that's going to go to their special lobe, their own lobes. As information from the body moves in, we know that it goes to the thalamus. The thalamus relays it to where it's supposed to go to. We have our cortex that will be the primary cortex, that gyri and the association area that's with it. Here's the cool thing. Decussation for the general senses of the body occurs. So sensations that are on the right, as they enter, they cross over to the left, and vice versa, which is kind of cool. They represent sensory information using something called a homunculus. Tiny man. This one is showing me my sensory input. The body parts that the body has to take and make sense of, the parts of the brain that are needed to complete that task are represented in proportion to the body part. For taking in information, for sensory information, what takes up the majority of this cortex of the brain?
The head.
The head. When you look at this structure, what that's telling me is that areas of eyes, nose, face, and so forth, they need the most attention, so to speak. Other areas, very little. Why?
So the brain is in the head.
Well, if we think about what has to be perceived, what has to be dealt with,
Everything get processed in there.
and how much information is coming in through this area of the body. The most of your information, because of sight, sound, smell, hearing, equilibrium. Okay, the rest of the body, look at like the trunk of the body, the legs, and so forth. What do you notice about the hands and the feet?
The hands and the feet are big.
They're requiring a huge amount of area. Can you think of reasons why? Touch. Because this is very fine-tuned. Muscles and everything that work, for example, the hands and the fingers, are very fine-tuned. And it helps us be able to do this number, to do this number. So it takes more for the body to do that than it does other parts, like the trunk of the body. So the sensory information will come into areas that are the sensory cortex. In the body as a whole, we've got our primary somatosensory. We'll have association, and then of course we're going to end up with having the motor one, which we'll start with on Tuesday. So today, work until with your partners. Couldn't find any brains. I was hoping we were going to be able to dissect one of the brains, but I can't find any. So I'll check with our lab manager and see if he may know where some are. Sheep brain. And so I'll check with him and